welcome to The Art of Adventure. This is episode 182 with Kavit Haria. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer, and guide, Derek Loudermilk. You can head over to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes for this episode, and make sure you grab your free guide to the top 10 ways to earn money online while traveling the world. Today's guest is Kavit Haria. He's a real interesting guy. You might know him from the business world. He's got a successful business, Insider Internet Success. But before that, he was helping musicians, teaching them to get more gigs, sell their music, get paid more. And that was Insider Music Success because he is a professional musician as well as a business genius. And at the beginning of this episode, we get into something totally off the topic of marketing, which is his recent documentary of one of his spiritual mentors. So he's a very a polymath, a guy with a lot of skills and interests. And the main part of this episode is talking about marketing. And it's funny because I actually met up with Kavit a few days after we recorded this interview. I met up with him in Budapest at, quote, the most beautiful cafe in the world, the New York Cafe. And we talked at that coffee meeting and in this interview about the power of partnerships. And we were both helping each other with potential key introductions and partnerships. So that's one of the things that we get into. But he talks a lot about marketing, the four main avenues for marketing and how to use each one, how to 10x your thinking about the impact you're going to achieve through the business you create. And he talks about the main problem that entrepreneurs have in that they don't know their target audience well enough and they don't know their target audience's problems well enough. So he tells us how to fix that. Anyway, very interesting interview. I know you're going to enjoy this one with Kavit Haria. Welcome back to The Art of Adventure. And I have with me today, Kavit Haria. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me.
And let's see, you are London-based, but where are you from?
So I was born in London, actually, but my parents were born in West Africa, so in Kenya, and then their parents were born in India. So I find it confusing to say where exactly I'm from, but I'm born in London, and I have Indian origin, and I grew up in West Africa, so I like to say that I'm from the world. I'm the universe's child. And at the same time, although I was born in London, I grew up the first 11, 12 years of my life in Lagos, Nigeria. So
oh, wow.
I lived the first beginning part of decade of my life there before coming back to London. And while I was there, I also went to an American school, hence the slight American accent.
Gotcha. Do you feel the global upbringing influences you still?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I feel like because of the varied cultures that I've been exposed to, and then for the last 5-7 years, I've done extensive amounts of travel in other different parts of the world. And I feel like every single step I take, whether it's work-related, living-related, family-related, travel-related, every single part of it shapes who I am. And like the more I'm willing to take the adventure, excuse the pun of the show, but the more I'm willing to take that next step without knowing where I'm going, like the more I'm willing to move in a direction that isn't the most natural direction to people, I feel like the more I grow. So everything that I've done has allowed me to appreciate life, appreciate culture, appreciate different perspectives, be more content, be more open, be more patient, because I've seen all kinds of different things and been witness to so many different experiences of life. I'm very grateful for all of those things. I think it really helps me to be who I am and allows me to appreciate the work that I do.
Can you give an example of a time, maybe recently, that you took a step in a direction that you didn't know where you were going?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, like, so it could be so many different things. Like, just last July, for example, this July just gone, I was working on a documentary, nothing to do with work, actually, something of mine that's really passionate. I'm very much into spirituality, meditation, understanding a little bit about the universe, understanding who I really am, what I'm really here to do. And I went on a quest to film a spiritual documentary about a spiritual master that has taught me a lot in my life. And it was a 5-day project, and it's been an incredibly intense project. I have thrown myself into the deep end, working on a documentary, never making a documentary in my life before, knowing how it's supposed to come out, finding a film crew to support me, and throwing myself into it in just going with the flow and not knowing where it's going to lead, not knowing how the day is going to turn out, not knowing how I'm going to direct it or anything like that. And I feel like in just those 5 days, I've had probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. But at the same time, I have been incredibly fortunate to do that. And I see that in hindsight, as opposed to seeing it beforehand. But it's also made me more sharper about what really matters, what is really important to capture when you're focusing on a project. Now, I've always been, I feel like, quite disciplined, and I've always very fortunately been confident. But when you only have 5 days to capture incredible content to make a 40-minute documentary, you know that every second counts in that period. And so, I feel like I'm better because of that experience. That's just an example outside of work, and I've really enjoyed doing it. I never really thought I would be interested in the idea of writing scripts and working on ideas to help put together documentaries about things that are of interest to me. But what a great idea.
Wow, that sounds really cool. What type of person is this spiritual master?
So I come from I follow, if that would be the right way to say it, I follow the Jain tradition, not Hinduism, not Buddhism, but Jainism. And Jainism has as its idol Lord Mahavir, who lived about 2,600 years ago. And the idea is really just to understand who I really am. Like, can I find that I am the person beyond this body, and can I connect to that source? And if I can connect to that source, can I realize that everything around me is temporary except that permanent source? And so this spiritual master is somebody that I've been associated with for now about 7 years. And I've learned and lived with him. I've been very fortunate to spend months with him, thanks to, of course, the business allowing me to do that. But in that time, I've just grown tremendously as a person. I've developed more patience, I feel. I've developed more humility, which I think is such a powerful thing. I've developed more courage and confidence to believe in myself, but at the same time, practicing meditation and understanding who I am to allow me to develop the qualities that are required for me to be a better human being.
So, who are you?
Great question. And I don't know if I have the answer to that, but I know that I'm bigger than who I am as this physical body. I believe that I am limited perhaps by the body, but I don't have to be limited by the body to act in that way. So I feel like in an unlimited fashion, I should look at things. I should look at things and not be blocked by how I'm seeing things right now. I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm trying to really get across is that beyond all of what happens on a day-to-day basis, I don't have to be hurt or disappointed or depressed or conditioned just because of the things that are affecting me right now. And I feel like I'm bigger than this, and therefore that bigger presence, that powerful presence that's within me has the ability to impact and influence so many people as well as myself. And I don't have to be worried about reaching people, but I also don't have to be worried about not reaching people.
Yeah, I got a few things out of that. But I think that's really helpful, actually, probably for most adventurers and entrepreneurs listening, because we can be so affected by disappointments that happen in the moment.
Yeah. And, I feel like the most important thing that I've gained is the idea of controlling your emotions. So, for example, and because you mentioned entrepreneurship, this came up in my mind, but the entrepreneur's job is to be able to control his or her emotions. Like, how many times as entrepreneurs, as small business owners, do we have to face up to decisions or things outside of our own control that influence the work that we're doing, and therefore react to that? And how many times do we have to be able to react on a near daily basis, where we have to be able to stop showing our anger or stay away from our inferior feelings or our disappointment, and really just rise and face up to the reality of what's going on and leave our emotions out of it? And at the same time, and it's so easy to say and it's so difficult to practice, but at the end of it, it's also about how much we can leverage the emotional state of our customers. Like, can we inspire them to feel good things? Can we empower them to feel better about what they're focusing on right now in order to actually buy from them? I don't believe that the idea of marketing is to empower your customer to feel disempowered, as it were, so that they feel like they need you. I feel like the more you can empower them, the more they'll realize that what you have is truly what they need, and then they'll buy. So emotions are such a big part of entrepreneurship that, you have to be able to control them and realize and see them, and also know when your emotions are dropping and when they're rising, and figure out how to get back into equilibrium. Because when you make those decisions that are so important out of either negative or positive emotions, sometimes you're not in your best state to make those decisions. Whether it comes to you, whether it comes to your team, which is also a whole new dynamic. Like, we have 14 people here, and can I be at the peak of my emotional state, which doesn't mean I have to be at the most positive or the most negative, but can I be at the strongest point, which is the most balanced, potent point, to make the right conversations and listen fully and engage fully in whatever they're saying with me, so that I can guide them and empower them in the right way, as opposed to just bringing them into my emotional high or low. Wow.
Yeah. And then when you have a team, I suppose as the leader, it's even more important, because then you become the sort of the hub of everyone's little bubble of emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And part of it is also like a lot of our team is remote, and we all work together as a company, first and foremost through Asana, before we look at Zoom and Skype and things like that. And Asana is really very beautifully developed in our company, I feel, and we use it very clearly to make sure that we have a rule, basically, that if it's not in Asana, it doesn't exist. So everything gets out there. But if someone's waiting for me to give feedback and I'm not calm enough, or something's happened in that last few minutes that's really on a personal level or on a business level made me very angry or very upset or very extremely positive or very extremely proud or happy, or my emotions are all over the place. If I don't get in control very quickly, that state, whatever state I'm in, gets injected into the message that I'm writing back, which could or could not, or may not affect that person that's reading it on the other side. Mm-hmm. So I think that overall, the emotional state of an entrepreneur is very important for someone to control and learn how to be in control of. And meditation is one of the things that allows you to learn that, as well as many other different practices. But most entrepreneurs that I meet, most business owners that I meet, don't have something outside of business to allow them to go in and practice and think about and refocus their life and reprioritize their day, or all those kind of things. And it's so important that we have that.
Yeah. I love that we started our conversation off this way. I think I read or heard somewhere that you have a genetics degree or biology background in some sense. Is that
yeah, is that true? I studied for 3 years at university. I have a degree in what's called medical genetics. Yeah. But I never ever got into work or any field like that.
So yeah, I also have a science background in microbiology, and cool. I've been in Asia a couple of years of the last 4, and exposed to, a broader array of spiritual traditions, and, just have a lot of yoga hippie friends. And so I'm really trying to explore the practical side of spirituality, and the sort of scientific side of spirituality. It's kind of fun. Yeah. So the documentary is
a really great book by Bruce Lipton. Have you read it? It's about cells and the science behind it, and how that's all very spiritual. Really interesting book, actually. It starts off very deep into the scientific side, I think, which now that I know what your background is, you'll pick that up and you'll love it, hopefully. And I found it quite interesting before it got into like the spirituality and the life force that lives within all of these cells, and how he puts the two things together. Really great. I recommend it.
Do you know the title?
I don't right now, but I will find out and let you know.
Bruce Lipton. Okay, I've got his name down. Okay, perfect. And we'll link that up for anyone else who wants to check that out. Biology of belief. Cool. You mentioned that you got to go and live with this spiritual master because of your business. So perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, I mean, and I did this degree in genetics. I'm also a musician, so I play what's known as the tabla. And I was very fortunate that I got into music from a very young age. It's been one of the best blessings of my life. And I also have performed at different venues with great artists and all kinds of things, and I had a great career with it. But a lot of musicians were asking at that point, how was I getting into what I was doing? And how was I getting those gigs? How was I selling that music? And I used that information that I had at that time to begin my internet businesses at that point. So my first company, Insider Music Business, and I had ebooks, CDs, DVDs, coaching programs, membership sites, all serving musicians, teaching them three things: how to get more gigs, how to sell more music, and how to get more exposure. And usually the end goal of a musician is that if they could do these three things, they would ultimately quit their day job, which is really important for them. And so I started to sell all of this education online. And I started to do that while I was leaving university. So that's how I never went into genetics, and I just pushed through with this. And it worked well. It took a lot of time before it started to work, as it were. And then it got to work, and I started to automate the business a little bit. Then I went to traveling a lot. I came back, I moved into consulting, and I started to use everything that I'd learned in that music business that I was running, especially marketing automation, funnels, email newsletters, to consult offline small businesses on exactly how they could do this in their business. And I was invited to speak at many conferences as well. And then I moved into running my own workshops. And as I was running my own workshops, obviously, if you run a workshop and you charge $2,000 for someone to attend, and you have 10 people there, you make a lot of money in a weekend. So sometimes that money would allow me to have the freedom of, when I'm not running the workshops, to go and do all these kind of traveling bits. And that was really quite exciting, because I could run 4 or 5 workshops a year, and I did them in Sydney, New York, and London. And I would have people come to these workshops, and they would learn in 2 days how to run a business online. And I would generate a huge amount of revenue, and that would give me essentially all the other time off in the year to go and do whatever it is that I wanted to do while I had my music business going. So that explains how I had that free time. But then, what I realized was, after running about 10 to 15 different workshops, that the people that came to the workshops after 6 months, if I followed up with them, they crammed so much in those 2 days that they really never, ever did anything else with it. And I'm sure you, as well as many of the listeners, will really resonate with that, because how many times have we all, as business people, gone to conferences, written down notes of ideas, paths of ideas, and some of it done in the workshop itself, but we never ever get around to it because we've either forgotten about it or we've been overwhelmed, and I feel like some of that, I have to admit, is about the way that I taught it. And I feel like if I was to go back and do that, I would do it very differently right now. But also, it's just about the fact that I was so good at what I did, and I am so good at what I do, that it's completely easy for me to talk about it, very difficult for someone else to digest it, because it's not new to them, right? I mean, it's not something that they know very well. It's not their area of expertise. So about 4 years ago, I decided that I'm going to stop doing workshops, and instead I'm going to find the right few people that are really dedicated and work with them for an entire 12-month period. And that's when we launched Automated Business System, which has been our flagship service ever since. It's been the best thing I've ever done. It's grown from leaps and bounds. The quality has improved in the way we deliver it. We have a team of 14 people purely working on that service. And essentially, we find somebody who's an expert who is struggling doing one-to-one work, is there doing private coaching, personal coaching, etc. And really what they want to do is find out how they can leverage those ideas that they have, that they consult in, that they coach in, and serve people in different ways. So it could be through group coaching programs. It could be through fully online coaching programs. It could be through workshops. It could be through other experiences. And we help them craft and develop those experiences and find and formulate the right strategy to be able to sell that online. So who are they selling to? How are they going to sell it? What are they going to do about it? And then we create all the right strategy, the right sales funnels, the product plan, and then move into implementation, where we actually build everything for them. So now what used to be before, the thing that held people back, where they would struggle to create everything because they'd have to learn everything technically or find the right team, we put that in our place in our office and said, we will do all of that for you. We will build that sales funnel, the website, the copywriting, the design, the logo, the filming of the course, everything for you. And then we'll get it live. And then instead of you spending, hundreds of hours you doing that, we'll do that. And instead we'll give you the marketing coaching that you need, which is the more important thing to actually get this out there. Because what I found is that most people would launch a business and they'd spend years doing it and be so exhausted with doing that they would just never have the energy to market the business, right? And so by putting in, a month of strategy consulting, 2 to 3 months of building the business, and then 8 months of actually getting everything marketed and coaching them on how to do it, we found that people were getting far better results doing that. We found that people were moving closer to the $100,000 in sales revenue in the very first year of an online business because we were there throughout the whole process with them. And so that's how I started. That's how I tested it out a few years ago. And then we started to bring a team into place. And now that entire team is so good at doing what they're doing that, we take on 4 or 5 people a month and we just roll them through a 12-month cycle and get these fantastic results where, for me, the most fulfilling thing is that we are taking people through a process where they are serving thousands of people every single month just because their business is reaching a whole lot more people. And I think that's really fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such an amazing thing. You know, we've all encountered the having to learn something technical and it being a stopping point. So I think that's the juiciest part of it. Besides obviously having mentors and for processes that you don't know. I'm actually curious about when people finish your program, say they've had a very successful year with you, what have you seen after you sort of send them off into the world?
So a lot of people will finish the program, and what will happen is that there's a couple of things that we'll find. The first is that they really enjoy the consulting part of things, like having the weekly coaching session or the fortnightly coaching session, and they want to continue that just because it keeps them accountable. It's someone to talk to, which is obviously very important. Like we had a meetup yesterday in London, and one of the reasons that I did that meetup, and I only do them once every few months, is just because entrepreneurship can be lonely, right? So you can sit behind the computer screen building a business, doing that consistently week after week, day after day, month after month, and just not have any human contact. And so the same thing works with this, where people will basically have the opportunity to talk with somebody on a regular basis just to keep their business going and share their ideas and do all of those interesting things.
Cool.
The other really interesting part is that when people go out into the world, they have to be able to take that business and keep it going. Like, the one thing I really speak a lot about is consistency. And consistency is really, really important, because if you stop your marketing, then you're going to find out that people aren't just going to take you seriously, right? Like sometimes that amount of engagement that you build up on Instagram because you post every day and then you stop posting for a month, that drops. The amount of interaction that you get on a daily post from Facebook, for example, and you do that every day for 30 days and you stop after that, it drops. If you send a weekly newsletter and then all of a sudden you stop and now you send it once a month, you realize that the open rates that you have and the click-through rates that you have, it all stops. So you have to be willing to consistently produce marketing on a regular basis. And if you're not willing to consistently do that, then you either find a different schedule or you just completely move out and find someone else to replace yourself to do that. So consistency is something that we find that people either struggle with or they do really well at the end of the program. But then finally, if they're doing well from a revenue perspective and if they're generally bringing in that sales target or they're pushing themselves to do it, they're all very excited and very happy to see where it goes and see what it's doing. We did a survey very recently and an analysis of some of the clients that we've had over the last few years, and we just look at how many of them after 12 months are having an impact in the world, because that's really important to me. How many of them are reaching out to people on social media? How many of them are building fan bases? How many of them are building email newsletters and the sales they're getting? And how many human beings are they bringing into their vicinity, into their circle, into their community? And on average, every client within 12 months of launch is somehow interacting with 25,000 people. That's a huge number for someone who's starting out in their first year. That's, hitting people on Instagram, hitting people on Facebook, hitting people on an email list, hitting people through events that they might be speaking at and all kinds of things. And that really fascinates me as well.
Wow. Yeah. And it sounds like it directly, probably, musicians want to do that. And now obviously entrepreneurs, for a lot of these experts, the larger their audience, the more useful they are.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's about, what impact you want to make in the world. And I feel like sometimes when you're willing to think bigger about the impact that you want to make into the world, the tactics that are required for you to be able to achieve that are different to if you just wanted to do something smaller. So for example, you could think exponentially about your business from the perspective of a 10 times mindset. Like, I want to think 10 times bigger. I want to achieve 10 times more. I want to reach 10 times more people. I want to feel 10 times better. I want to, all of that requires you to have a very specific mindset that's different to if I just want to be 10% better or 10%, more powerful or 10% more reach or 10% more engagement versus 10 times. And I think both those two things also offer you different tactics in how you want to run and operate your business.
Okay. So to perhaps illustrate that, maybe we could use my own business as an example. So I have a hard time personally with 10x thinking. Right now we get, let's say 1,500 listeners to the podcast. If I wanted to 10x that or 10x my reach in total, okay, it's not going to work to just post more on social media. Where do you start to when you think about 10x thinking in terms of, say, reach?
So let's say let's say somebody's got 10,000 followers on Instagram, or yourself, or anyone, and they want to increase it by 10%. That's 1,000 more people they need to get. So for that, something like a different approach to how you post or what you post, potentially, and what you tag and the hashtags you might look for, or hashtags that you might change up, that might get you 1,000 people over the next 1 year, of course. But if you want to 10x the 10,000, and get up to 100,000, that's going to require more than just changing a quote to a video, or a video to a scenery, or your holiday pictures to something else, or your speaking pictures and the hashtags you use. I think that comes down to like a different tactic altogether, which is about engaging with the influencers, perhaps engaging on the right podcast to talk specifically about this, and therefore the focus that you're giving is more about Instagram. And you could talk more about Instagram if you want to get up to 100,000 followers than you are right now, because you don't need to talk that much if you just wanted to get to 1,000. So reaching out to the right people that you can engage with, that you can connect with, that you can collaborate with, that you can do the right videos with, that you can do the right episodes with, to get you to that goal is probably better than and a different tactic altogether than if you were just going for the 10% model.
Gotcha. And I've heard you say that partnerships are really important, and you just mentioned, finding the right podcast to go on or the right videos to make. How does one choose good partners for this, or webinars, or whatever?
So I think it's a really interesting thing, partnerships. And partnerships are one of the 4 key areas of marketing that I like to talk about, as well as paid advertising, social media, and content marketing. Partnerships is one of those 4. And it's really important if you want to quadruple, magnify, exponentially grow the podcasting, or the reach, or the audience, or the email list that you have to reach into partnerships. Because when you can find the right partners that are aligned to what it is that you're doing, their audience is aligned to what it is that you're doing, their audience is right for what it is that you're doing, you will find that the recommendation that they give, you will find that the connection they talk about, or the endorsement that they provide, is going to give you the highest conversions that you've ever got in anything else, because this is coming from one human who's already respected, talking about another human who is going to be respected, and that's because they respect them. So I would always look very quickly at the people first that are local to me, that I can find and meet and make connections for, because I could potentially set up meetings and go and speak to them and talk to them, because that is the quickest, easiest way face-to-face to make those connections. That's the very first thing that I would do. The second thing I would do is then look, of course, online. And when it comes to the internet, there are so many different groups of people that you could find, but I would go to the influencers, the people that have the audiences that you want to serve. And depending on the industry that you're in, that could be such a small pool of people, or it could be such a large pool of people. So here in the UK, and the UK is a lot smaller than, for example, the people that you might find in the US. But if I'm looking for people that serve coaches, consultants, freelancers, healers, teachers, there are only a handful of people that do it extremely well. Like, that do it with large audiences, that do it with reaches of, a few thousands of people, that would make it worthwhile for me to go and look at if I'm at the place that I'm at. So I can pick out those people and try to create connections with them, meet them, take them out for dinners, take them out for, think about who they might have on their family, because I've been following them on social media, and then send them stuff that's related for them as gifts, or as thank you notes, or as just, congratulations on the work that you're doing in this space. We really respect it. I think you're doing some great stuff. Those work really well. Like, it sounds very cliche, to think about somebody's family and send them a gift not for them, but for their family and or for their kids, or for their wife or husbands. But I found those to be the most powerful ways to generate relationship starters than just dropping them an email, because they obviously get dozens of emails every day. And if somebody is listening to this and they're starting out and they're looking to create partnerships, because I think it's really important to go back to the roots. I can talk about where it is that I am right now, but when I think about somebody who's a beginner, who's starting out, the best way to do that is to find perhaps 50 people that you really want to partner with, and make a list of them. Put them down into an Excel spreadsheet, perhaps, or a Google sheet. Write down their URL, write down their Twitter, their Instagram, start follow them, comment and interact with everything that they're doing. And it is a lot of work. It's not the easiest of things to do. It's not as easy as setting up a Facebook ad and running it, but it does give you the best results. So sometimes it's worth that effort in the long run to do that, and to invest and to build those relationships with time and energy, commitment. commenting on their stuff, interacting and engaging on the stuff that they're sharing, and just realizing and knowing and learning about their interests based on what it is that they post. And it's obviously very easy these days to learn about what people are interested in and what their family are interested in, where they take their kids on a regular basis through social media, and then try to figure out the right way to connect with them and to get them the right gifts if gifts are important, or make the right approach about what you can really add to their repertoire, what value you could bring to what it is that they're doing. And all those things open the doors for building partnerships. And
say you do create a great relationship with this person. How do you propose the actual, whatever it is, to get some of their audience to become your audience? Like, what does that pitch or proposal look like?
So when you're pitching someone for a partnership, it's not about you pitching them for the partnership. That's the very first thing to understand, I feel. Like, your job is to pitch them about how you can help them. Your job is to pitch them about how you can make something in their life or their business easier. You can open up another connection for them that they might value. You can do some piece of work for them that they might benefit from. You can create content for them that they can use for free. That you can, if someone has a membership site and you can contribute material for them, you should do that for free. All these kind of things that you do have to be for that person for free. And then what will happen naturally is that person will say, well, thank you very much. How can I help you? Well, what are you working on these days? Or, is there anything that I can do to send people your way? Is there anything that I can do because I think you're a great person and I think that people should know about you? Is there anything I can do to do that? And that is the best kind of partnership that I've ever built. When I have just served, and I know that in time, the human psychology and the human body works in such a way, the human mind works in such a way that the more I serve, that person is always going to want to take an interest in me and come back to me. So if you have a community and you can freely and openly share what it is that they're doing with your community and you send them business, that's also great, because they're going to notice that. Like, everyone's always going to notice where their business comes from, and they're going to reciprocate some way or the other by serving you, or by gifting you, or by thanking you, or by being of service to you. And some of the best partnerships I've had have been built over time. They haven't just worked with one email or with one connection or with one meeting. And that's really important to note.
Yeah. We just had John Levy on, and he was talking about building relationships, 10 years before they sort of bloom or come to fruition. So yeah, I love the long-term approach, because these are people that you want to be associating with anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Kavit, what is your favorite part of your job?
It's a really interesting question, and there are so many different moving parts, but I think the one thing that brings me alive every day is when someone shows up, a potential client, a teammate, and says, look, here's what I'm working on. I've got this product, I've got this as my target audience, and this is my vision. Those three things here's my target audience, here's the product that I'm trying to reach, and here's the vision, and therefore who I'm trying to serve and what I'm trying to achieve. And then they ask me, what do you think is the best route to get to market? Like, how do you think I should design a sales funnel so that I can have a customer go through a particular journey to buy? Waking up to do that, waking up to think about that, and coming into the office and really getting out a sheet of paper and drawing that stuff out really excites me. It's as weird as it sounds. I really get a kick out of thinking about how I could take a user through a journey to build a relationship and then sell, so that they get maximum value. But obviously that client of mine or that teammate of mine is actually reaching someone bigger than themselves in achieving the goal that really matters, which is to spread the value that they have. So that really excites me the most. That's probably the best part I like about my job.
And what does that process look like for you?
I always like to think about and really dig deep into who it is that the target audience is, because I feel like the majority of business out there that fail within the first year or the second year, and that there's obviously that famous horrific statistic about the number of businesses that, and business owners that quit, and the reason for that is just you just don't know well enough who your target audience is. And of course there are other reasons, like not knowing how to run a business, not knowing how to structure your sales journey, not knowing what to do when someone shows up in front of you and says, here's money, take it. That people struggle with all kinds of things. But the biggest thing I feel that people struggle with is just not knowing who they're trying to target, not knowing who they're trying to reach. And so I would do whatever I can, whether it's half an hour, to really try to dig deep into who the target audience is, try to feel it, try to, empathically understand who that is. And only when I'm in that position will I then try to understand what is the best way to create that sales funnel. Is it through sending out what is the free type of stuff to give out? What is the language I want to speak about or share about in the email sequences? In the sales funnels, what do I want to say? What do I want to say in the sales page? How do I want to make sure that I generate trust in the process? Because if I create a sales funnel for somebody and I don't know who the target audience is and I'm not really quickly creating trust, then I'm not going to get to the sale. And the ultimate formula for me and that I've tried to figure out and understand is that the quicker I can move someone to having trust, the more likely they are to buy, because only when someone has trust are they going to buy.
Right. Gotcha. How has your own thinking evolved since you started the automated business system about marketing?
Yeah, about marketing?
Well, it can be more general than that if you like.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think there's a few different areas. The first is marketing, as you've mentioned, and marketing is now not about doing so many different things. It's just about doing a few things really, really well. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the purpose of marketing is to build authority. And so when someone sees you as a respected expert or respected authority or respected individual with great value to provide to the world, they're going to gravitate towards you and they're going to want to do business with you. If you're not, and I'm saying this because the people that I work with are coaches, consultants, trainers, healers, it's essentially service providers. And as a service provider, if you are seen as somebody that knows what they're talking about, if you are seen as somebody that is giving great value and getting results for the people that you work with, two important parts, then people are going to gravitate towards you and they're going to want to work with you. But at the same time, the moment you feel like you're generating enough authority, or you're getting to a point where you are having people listen to you, take action, open your emails, take some kind of forward movement and create some momentum to get results, it's not so much about creating. It's actually more about listening. And the purpose of really good marketing is to spend most of your time listening to the concerns, the challenges, the problems that people are facing, and then to respond accordingly or create accordingly to what it is that you're hearing. Because I feel like most people, first of all, they think they know what it is that they're selling. And second, they think they know who it is that they're trying to target to. And then third, because of those two things, they think they know the concerns, the challenges, and the problems that their customers have. And all those things, in most business owners' cases, come from assumptions. So can you move from the assumption phase to actually truly being grounded in knowledge that is proven and that you really know about? And if you can, and if you're sure about that, then the results will be magnificent. They'll be quicker. They'll be easier to manifest, etc. Because of that. So those are a few thoughts that are always in my mind about marketing. Ultimately, marketing is about getting as much attention as you can and being able to hold and grab that attention. But I've also come to realize that most of the people that I work with, of course, don't come from a marketing background, don't know much about marketing, have to be taught about the different strategies and tactics that work in all different kinds of marketing areas. And therefore, what matters the most is not to do everything, but to pick a few things and do them really well, as I mentioned. The other area of building a business in this particular service has been about team building and systemization and gravitating my role from being the person that's doing everything to being the leader. And therefore, the things that I'm working on are, is my team doing okay? What challenges do they have? How can I help them overcome their challenge? How can I remind them consistently about the vision so that they remember the value and the reasons why they're doing what they're doing? And so whenever they face frustrations from clients, they can move beyond them a lot more quicker. And at the same time, how do I systemize a lot of the process that's being delivered on a one-to-one level? It's not like, we're selling cameras and therefore you can sell as many of them and have a very linear process of how that systemization works. We're trying to systemize a process which is about delivering one-to-one work. And so how can we do that? By allowing people enough freedom to do what they want within the constraints of a process that produce results. And those kind of ideas really fascinate me, and I wake up thinking about those kind of things generally when I'm working. And right now we're recording this in August, and I'm not sure when we're going to go live, but whenever this goes live, I feel like July and August are sometimes the 2 months for the last few years that have been the lowest for us in terms of bringing in clients, but the highest for us in terms of output of improving our systems, improving our team processes, improving our understanding of our own clients and our own vision, improving our own marketing, because it's the downtime. And because we put in more effort doing our own things in that time, when we hit the ground running in September and we bring in a whole lot more new clients for the next 6 months after that, we're in a better shape. Our product is a lot better. And so we try to systemize our year around that process as well.
Brilliant. And how do you approach learning new things or keep yourself up to date or on the cutting edge of your field?
I read a lot. I read 3 to 4 books a month, sometimes more. In the summer, it's usually more. When I take a holiday, it's usually more. But I pick topics that are of interest to me, and then I dive deep into them. So like if I'm really interested in leadership, I'll buy like 6 different books and read about leadership and consistently just immerse myself in it. And there's a lot of repetition amongst different books, but I find that, if I can get a book and it gives me 1 or 2 really great ideas, it's probably been worth it. So reading is really huge. Very recently, I've been getting into listening to podcasts. I've always recorded for them, but never really gotten into listening to it. And I really feel like audio is at the cutting edge, so the work that you're doing is really fantastic. But it's amazing to see how in a field of so many podcasts, you're able to keep up with such a great popular podcast. So kudos to you for that. And listening is such a great thing because so many people are available to listen in their commute, in their traveling time, in their downtime, and they just don't want to sit there watching video, maybe because there's people around them or all kinds of different things. And just by listening, some people are able to engage. So podcasts and reading are the 2 greatest ways that I learn. And of course, when I take the ideas that I take, what's really important about reading and listening is just not reading and listening, but it's the action that you take. Sometimes it's not really just about what you're learning, and what matters more is about the execution that you have behind those. So I'm always into just taking ideas and running with them, whether it's me or I'm sharing it with a team and they're able to run with it. But the more I can run with the ideas I read about, the better I learn and the better I become at learning and thinking about things. Because someone might say something in one way, but it may not really hit me or digest or really influence what I'm doing unless I sit to think about it or sit and test it. And that's where I think the value really is for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you think is important for the listener to know?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say that one of the really important areas or times of my life when I feel like I've been the most productive, been the most effective, and flourished the most has been when I finally decided to stop working from home and move into an office space. And it's not really the kind of advice that I think a lot of people may share or may think about. And some people might brush it over because they don't want to spend the money at a co-working space or even renting an office or anything like that. But I found that whenever I have left the home to go to the workspace and spent 3 to 5 hours there, I get way more done in that time than I would ever have done at home. And I probably spent the first, 7 years of my internet business's life at home, working from home. But in the last 5 years or 3-4 years that I've really been out and gone out and done work outside, I've been the most productive. I've achieved the most. I've received the most. I have been able to impact the most and also just produce work and keep both spaces separate. And it's really been very empowering. And I think it's also been great for my mental state of mind, which I think is important to touch on for entrepreneurs, because sometimes we're doing our only work ourselves, incredibly passionate about it, no one to really share it with, because sometimes when we have such big dreams and crazy dreams and wild ideas that are pushing us to do what it is that we're doing and are calling us to do that, not everyone understands that unless they're in the same mindset. So you don't normally end up sharing it with a lot of people until you go out to meet people or find people or network with people or socialize with people of that same like-mindedness. So I would say that that's really, really been fruitful for me, and it's something that I would recommend to anybody that's listening, whether it's a day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it is, to find the right co-working space or the right space to go and rent, or just another cafe or bar that you could go to work from, where you can perhaps do work in a different environment, but also talk to people at the same time. And I think you would agree with my second point here, which is that what has really made me more productive is actually working less, which means taking more vacations, taking more holidays, constraining the amount of time that I'm giving myself to work in a day, as opposed to allowing myself the ability to just work the whole day whenever I want to work. And by forcing that creativity or that work period into a specific amount of time, the output that I produce is far more effective, far more beneficial than what it would be if I just gave myself the whole time to work.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great points, and two that hit close to home for me, as I am recording this in my home studio, and my baby is just a couple rooms away. Never know when he's gonna let a loud yell out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
It's for your listeners.
Yeah. Kavit, I want to take a second to acknowledge you for the work you're doing. I think it's really, really amazing. And obviously you've thought a lot about this, and you apply, your attention to each of your clients. That really is obvious. So I know you're supporting a lot of people to them help the world. So keep with the good work.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Where can people find you online should you wish to be found?
So, I feel like the only reason I'm online, I'm not really into I share a lot of my own personal life and social life, but social media on a personal level doesn't really excite me or engage me or anything like that. But for a perspective of connecting heart to heart with people who are potentially going to build businesses, and if I can inspire them in that way, I like that kind of stuff. So I'm all over social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. My website is www.insiderinternetsuccess.com. And for any of your listeners that are really interested in wanting to build an online business, but really are getting stuck around the strategy of it, what is the best model to use? How is the best way to funnel people through a process? How should I, reach out to my audience and convert them from visitor to prospect to client? One of the things that we do as a company is, because we only take on a few clients, so we're not really in the game to just, go out there and market and find clients, and force ourselves to, down people's throats in that way. But we prefer to just have an invite process. So if anyone is interested in finding out a little bit more about what we do, they can find out at our website. And when they're there, if you feel like you would value some one-to-one time, just having a chat with a business coach about what it is that you're doing, where your goals are, and how your business could fit and be built or be designed online, or how you could take your expertise and package it into programs that you can sell online, we offer a free, no obligation, 30-minute strategy session with a business coach. So you can go to the website, find out details about that, and take up the time. There's no reason to buy at the end of it, but hopefully you get some great value from it anyway. So that's something that I wanted to share and offer with your listeners here.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll have that linked in the show notes. And Kavit, really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fun.
Cool. I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to catching up next week in Budapest.
Likewise. Another great episode with Kavit Haria. There is so much useful stuff in there. I am sure that you found it useful. I have been implementing many of the things that we talked about since this interview, including really doubling down on partnerships, and it's paid off. It's awesome. So if you found this episode helpful, then make sure you thank Kavit on Twitter or Instagram and let us know what you got and how you are using the things that he taught us. And I want to let you guys know about an opportunity that's going to be coming your way. I recently created a video course with Laden Juracek. He is the host of the Travel Wisdom podcast. And this course is about how to use the hero's journey as a framework for your life and how to gamify your life, your personal development. It's a really interesting new take on the hero's journey and gamification and personal development. So we're looking for beta testers. If you think you want to do this, we're looking for people to give us feedback on the course, and we're going to open it up to a small number of people, maybe 50 people, to go through the course at a big discount before we do the official launch. So look for that opportunity coming your way, or just get in touch with us and we'll put you on the beta launch list. That is all for today's episode. So now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.